Welcome back, my friends. First of all, I feel like I am so excited from the inside out. I could squeal and jump around if it wasn't crazy for me to do that right now. I'm so excited because we have I'm just so excited. I'm going to tell you why. Okay, I'm going to stop saying I'm so excited and tell you why. At some point this week, this podcast has surpassed 1,000 downloads. And that makes me that makes me so happy. It makes me so happy for so many different reasons. Number 1, I remember being in full analysis paralysis mode with this podcast, not sure if I was going to do it, when I was going to do it. Um and I did it. And I just did the thing. And now, hindsight, it happened. It worked. It's working. I'm so stinking happy. One of the things that, paralyzed me in making this decision to start this podcast was that I thought it was going to be a huge time suck. I told myself this story that when I start a podcast, that's going to be more time out of my schedule to do other things. And I remember rewriting that narrative and just being like, this this is actually a natural expression of who I am and what I already do. I already love talking to my friends and my family and my clients about these topics. I'm already living my life. I'm just sharing with you all stories and lessons and things that are coming up for me during my human experience, like I do with my friends. I am already getting on Instagram and talking about these things. Why not do it in just a different way, a different container for the same art, just a different container? And so now, being on the other side of it, I just feel so, so happy. I'm cannot tell you from the bottom of my heart, from the bottom of my soul space. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for every single person within the sound of my voice, for just for being here, for being available to receive these thoughts and have these conversations and listen to these episodes. And no matter where you're listening from, maybe you're in the car, maybe you're at your desk, maybe you listen when you're at the gym, or you listen when you're on a walk, or you listen whenever. I just want you to know I'm so freaking thankful. So, one of the ways that I would like to express my gratitude is to do a giveaway. And I'm so excited because I want this giveaway to only be for listeners, for active listeners. So this is not going to be a giveaway that I do on Instagram. This giveaway is going to be really special because I want to give away 5 copies of the Unleash Your Power Journal. 5 copies of the Unleash Your Power guided journal to help you own your power, own your story, and reignite your creativity. And I've talked about this journal in previous episodes. You can find it on Amazon right now if you do want to invest in a copy. But I really, really want to give away 5 copies for free for you all incredible humans, incredible souls that have made this. You just made this so possible for me. I'm so happy. So here are the deets. Here's how we're gonna do it. Giving away 5 copies. Okay, so there are 2 ways that you can win or receive one of these copies. The first way is this: simple. You go to my website, anastasiajones.com, and you spell that ANASTASIAJONES.com. and you just submit a contact form and you say, hey, I listened to the Unleash Your Power podcast. Know you're doing a giveaway. I'm entered. Like you, that's just how you enter. Because that way I have your email address and I can respond back to you. And when you win, if you win, when you win, then I can get your mailing address and mail it to you. That's one way to enter. Now, if you want a bonus entry, I want you to leave a review. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or honestly, wherever you leave a review. And then do the same thing. Go to my website, enter a contact form, and say, I left a review. This is my name, the name that you left in the review. So I hope that makes sense. I was thinking it through and I'm like, that is actually, I feel like that's the most simple option for all of the active listeners to enter. So either you go to my website, enter the contact form, or leave a review, then enter the contact form on my website and tell me you left it and what your name was. Okay, I'm just so happy. Oh, so thank you for that. Number two, and here's another big thing that I'm celebrating with you right now is this is the first episode that I'm doing a video for. This is the first episode that I pressed record, not only to record my voice, but also to record my face. And I'm doing this for a number of reasons. Number one, I am going to be creating just clips, short clips, video clips for my social media platforms. And then also, I'll be posting the videos on the tube, on YouTube. So we're experimenting with that. I'm going to do it for a few weeks, see how I like it. I think it's going to be a little more raw, which is fun. Like I have this mug, this coffee mug here. I'm drinking coffee, which I will say this. I'll tell you a story about this mug that I'm holding right now. And if you catch the video on YouTube or something, you'll see it. But my mother gave this mug to me. It has a print of a painting on it, and it's a woman and her kid in a beautiful field with some flowers in it. And my mom gave it to me because she had this mug when she was, I don't know, she said she was about like early 20s, maybe late teens, early 20s. She got this mug. And I just think it's so cool that she still has and she gave it to me. It always makes me think of us. So anyway, that's another big news. Video podcast coming in hot and spicy. Um, okay, I want to say a few weeks ago posted a poll on the gram in my stories, and I said, I'm gonna answer some questions on the podcast. So like submit your questions. And I got two questions, y'all, which I'm really happy about. Okay. First of all, I'm happy because the questions were really good. And I don't know how long it's going to take me to respond to them because I have so many thoughts about them. And one of the questions is perfect because it's about kind of living in Maine and the update that I want to give you all. If you're curious about what my most recent move to Maine has looked like. So I moved to Maine on March 1st from Southern California. And big move, I know, huge move. And in what episode was it? 12. In episode 12, you can go back and learn more about what that whole journey looked like for me. It was, especially being a reflector, um, it was quite a transformative experience. I learned so much. And so she asked me, what is your favorite part about living in Maine? Like, what do you enjoy? What have you enjoyed about living here? And so I will say this, I feel like I'm home. Like, I feel like this is the only place that I've ever wanted to, I could ever picture myself um, growing roots. And I say that because I've lived all over. I've lived in Baltimore, I've lived in DC, I've lived in Florida, I even lived in Jerusalem for a stint. I lived in California, and I feel like I'm missing something in there besides growing up in New England, in New Hampshire. So I'm looking back at all of those places and I'm thinking, like, I always had a plan to leave eventually. Even like getting to those places, I always had this plan like, okay, I'll be here for 4 years, or okay, I'll be here for 2 years, or okay, I'll be here for 6 months, or okay, I'll be here for whatever it might be. And so that's been the pattern. Very nomadic. Um, you know, this is the first place where I felt so at home in a way where can't even see myself leaving. I can't even see myself moving, and it's not because I'm tired. And it's not because the move was quite the haul emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically. Um it was quite the haul, family. But it's not because of that. It's truly because I love it here. So, I really love waking up super early. I'm a morning person if you didn't know. Um I wake up like naturally around 5:30, sometimes earlier. Sometimes earlier. So I wake up before the sun and I love watching the sunrise and the early mornings and the birds and the coffee and the journaling and the quiet time, the meditations. Like, yes, I wake up early, but those morning hours, I barely speak. Like, it very much is me just being in my own vibe, being in my own energy, and mentally and preparing for the day, which I love to do. So I've really loved that experience being here. Every morning I take a walk in the woods. Maybe not every morning, but every day I take a walk in the woods. And I go to one of my favorite spots by this river, and it's just gorgeous. And I will sit there for as long as I want, feel the wind in my face, see the birds. Sometimes when it's low tide, I can walk on some boulders that are in the water and just, you know, experience it that way. But when it's high tide, I can't even see the boulder I would typically walk on. So that's cool. Um, I've loved it. I've loved visiting coffee shops. What else have I done? Hanging out with my friends and my community. It's been so special, and making memories. So I've loved my time here. Um, Maine is also a very interesting place, and I mentioned this in, I want to say it was episode 13 as well. No, maybe it was episode 12. Anyway, Maine is special to me because my father, who passed away when I was 11 or 12, I think I had just turned 12, he lived in Maine. And my mother and my father divorced when I was about 2 or 3. And so most of my memories are of, visits every other weekend, turned into every month, which, fewer and further between. And then he passed. So Maine really holds like a lot of, the best I can put it is like karmic resonance for me. That's why I find it so wild that I ended up here, because I mean, not 10, 15 miles away is the place where I very last saw my father. And I think that's actually a really wild story that I'll tell at some point on the pod, because I know I'm not the only woman, the only person out there who has a difficult relationship, father figure relationship, father figure dynamic. And so I would love to talk about that in another episode. So stay tuned for that. But there's a lot here. And so I just find it so beautiful that I am able to be back here to redefine the space, to heal in these new ways, and I've loved it. The second question that I received was from an incredible woman who I cannot wait to have on this podcast. She already agreed, and I can't wait to have her on this podcast. But she said to me, she asked me, what are your favorite things about being a human design reflector? She's like, what are your favorite things? And I really had to think about that. I mean, part of me is like, I still have to think about that. Um, just learning more about being a reflector, which, if those of you don't know, reflectors in human design make up 1 to 2% of the population, very rare. And as a reflector, I get why, because like I don't, every single human design type has this very unique contribution to the collective that they make. And I'll do a whole, oh my gosh, I just remembered I have already a guest that I'm going to have on this episode that is a human design expert and has studied and coached in human design for years. And so I cannot wait to have her on because we'll have this conversation. I've been certified in human design and I still continue to learn more and more and more every single day. I do integrate it in some of my one-on-one coaching with brand messaging and brand clarity clients, but I haven't done it on the scale that she does it. And I think it's just so fascinating. Um, so I cannot wait to have her on. Her name is Allison, and that's going to be a great episode. But for me, as a human design reflector, reflectors are meant to kind of gauge and take the temperature of their community, find like themes and patterns and things that are working, things that aren't working. And I will say, every single community I've been a part of, that has been I've experienced this. And it's almost to the point where I'm like, I'm noticing these patterns. I feel really good about these things. I don't feel really good about these things. But I feel like everybody should be able to see what I'm seeing, and they don't. And for a long time, I just thought that it was me, that I was going crazy. I'm like, is nobody getting this? Like, is nobody picking up on this? And the answer is no. Now I'm learning. The answer is no. Like, there are some things that you may experience and you think it's common knowledge, but it really isn't. So I think that's one thing I love about being a reflector, is that I do have this awareness of people, of my communities. And for a reflector, we, I mean, it's in the name, we kind of absorb these elements of our community, good or bad. We absorb what we experience, what we see, what we experience. We absorb it and we become it. We like almost like test it out. It's kind of like test driving a car. We kind of like embody whatever that pattern is in our community, good or bad. We become it, we embody it. So if it's not something that's expansive, then we become it and it doesn't feel great, I will tell you. And however, if it's something that's really great, really fun, and really exciting, and really healthy, and I mean, what's another word I'm looking for? Amplifying, like if it's that, it feels so good, like deep in my soul, in my body, like it feels so great. And I will say, for a long time, I thought I was an introvert. Like I would define, people were like, you're an introvert. I would classify myself as an introvert. But then learning more about being a reflector, I do feel like the pattern is, I'm a reflector 5'2", by the way. Now this is it. That's a whole nother story, because I thought I was a 6'2" for a long time. Put in my birth time. I realized it was off by 1 minute, changed my results, changed my profile. So I'm a 5'2", and we're working through that. But I will say that the two in a human design profile is the hermit. And especially if it's in your unconscious, then the two means that you have this like natural genius, that you can just pick things up really fast, and you need that alone time to be in your space to recharge. So like that is also very true. But as a reflector, I'm telling you, I love being in communities and environments where people are having fun, experiencing new things, testing out new things. sharing their different schools of thought. I love thinking outside the box. I love talking about weird stuff with people that are excited about it. Like, I love it. I'm here for it all the time. I love groups that have a really good vibe. So, those are a couple things that I really enjoy about being a reflector. And I could go on and on because the more I learn about it, the more I really am excited for it, um, and thankful that I'm just learning more about myself. So there's that. That was the second thing that I wanted to do this episode. So we've done a lot. We talked about having hitting 1,000 downloads. And we talked about the giveaway and how to enter that. We talked about those questions that people submitted. So I'm happy that I was able to share those responses. And the last thing we're going to chat about before we dive in, because I do have a whole talk and topic. I have a whole topic for this episode. Um, I am hosting. I haven't done this in about a year. Okay, over a year. But I decided to open up some slots for brand voice clarity calls. Brand voice clarity calls. And if you don't already know what these are, they are 30 minutes one on one with me where we talk about the challenges that you may be facing growing your personal brand. If you need clarity on what you want your brand to be, if your brand feels all over the place, if you really desire to show up online in the authentic expression of who you are, maybe you desire to start a coaching business and scale your business, maybe you're struggling with like what to say on social media or what to say in the different places that you want to show up, like maybe it's LinkedIn, maybe it's email list, whatever it might be. Maybe you're not consistent in creating content because you feel stuck. You don't know what to say. You haven't figured out your messaging. You feel all over the place. You will love a brand voice clarity call. And I want you to go to the link in the show notes and sign up for one. There are a few spots, they're limited. Once I reach kind of the threshold for those calls, then I'm going to put them on pause. So if you're listening to this, get in on it while you still can. I love doing these so much. Like, I remember doing them last year and multiple times having the most beautiful conversations where we ended up crying and like good, happy, joyful, beautiful tears, not the kind that you're like, oh my God, this is so hard, but the kind where you're like, oh, I feel so good. I feel so free. It almost feels like it almost feels like brand therapy, which I should do something like that because I find that fascinating. Like, it really is such a full body holistic experience creating a personal brand and showing up online like this. And especially if you desire to write books or speak on stages or host workshops or, share your art with people, help make the world a better place. Your brand is so important. And that's why I love doing what I'm doing. I love, love, love it. I've loved it every single day for the last 6 years. Actually, we might be going on 7 now. Wow, you guys, I just did the math. 8. 8 years. Oh, so anyway, check that out. The link in the show notes. Okay, let's move along. I'm gonna take a sip of this here coffee that is officially lukewarm. We love that. We love that. I can't tell you how many times I reheat my coffee every day. I can't tell you. I'm probably like a 2 or 3 coffee reheater. That's to say I have 2 cups every day, so every morning. All right. So here's the scoop on the content I'm about to share. So earlier this week, I gave a talk at a women's retreat, and they were all meeting in person, and I was meeting over Zoom. And I had a whole nother talk planned out. Whole nother talk. I love when I speak in conferences and workshops and retreats and seminars and you name it. I love the workshop feel. So it's never just a 45-minute chat. It's always I talk, I share a principle, I give a prompt. Um, the women in the room respond in their own way with their own unique story and then, or their own unique response. Then we have a time for sharing. And then I move on to the very next point. We do that again. And then we close, have a Q&A. So that's the flow. If you ever hire me to speak at an event or a workshop or anything like that, that's how I love to share. So I have a whole, flow. And I had a whole talk that I was going to give and practice this talk, right? Like had the slides ready for this talk, like really it was done. It was done. And just before, I want to say 2 days before, I realized that is not what's on my heart right now. And one of the things I love about being a reflector, which I have found so many times, is that we're innately um, in tune with kind of like the themes that are coming up in our community, like the themes that are happening in the people and spaces around us. And I can't tell you how many times this happens to me where I feel like a certain lesson or a certain topic is on my heart a lot. And then out of nowhere, I just hear all of these people talking about it everywhere. I mean, even people that I don't interact with on a daily basis or even a monthly basis, I'll see something on their social media and I'll be like, oh my gosh, or I'll hear something on a podcast and be like, oh wow, they're talking about it too. So it wasn't the pattern, it wasn't the theme. My first talk wasn't the theme I wanted to talk about because it wasn't what I was picking up on. What I was picking up on is what I'm sharing with you right now, which is all about choosing the path that leads to your joy. And the question I want to ask you is if you followed your joy, where would it lead you? If you followed your joy, where would it lead you? What would that path look like? And I first want to start by sharing a story or sharing a poem. I want to share a poem, and this is one of my favorite poems. It is by Robert Frost, and it's called The Road Not Taken. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. There was for that the passing there had warned them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay. In leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. And knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling with this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Robert, hitting us with the good. That poem, every time I read it, it resonates with me. It resonates with me. And I hope it resonates with you. I want you to think about the path that you'd take if you followed convention. What does the path look like where you're doing what people think you should do, say you should do? What does the path look like when you're following the program? What does that path look like? Are you on that path right now? I want you to think about that. I want you to share about that. And then I want you to think into and feel into what would it look like for you to follow your joy, to take the road less traveled, to completely deviate from what you should do or what society tells you you should pursue? What if you chose a totally different path? Because what you have before you are two paths. You can either go down the path of, people telling you what you should do, or you can choose the path of your joy. You can lead yourself. You can lead your life in a way that you want to. You can follow your joy, your bliss, your passion. You can redefine everything and take that road. And what I want to tell you is like, there is more at stake here than you realize. And that's kind of been the phrase that's been meditating on my heart and my mind, is like, especially with me choosing to completely reinvent myself again, because I've done this multiple times where I make about 3 decisions and I have a totally different life. And it's the life that I want instead. I've done this multiple times in my life. And my move from California to Maine and being here now, I just feel so good being here. And if I had stayed in California and gave it more time and kept my apartment and finished out the lease that I signed a contract for, and that I, for all intents and purposes, should have finished. I should not have broken this lease, right? I should have just waited it out. Um, and I said, no, this is the path that I want to take, looks like this. And I'm following my joy and I'm following my bliss and I'm doing it anyway. And I'm willing and available to accept all consequences in relation to pursuing the life that I want. I was available. I am available for it. And so my question to you is, are you? Are you available to lead your own life and do things in your own way and make your own damn path? Make it whatever you want it to be. And it's funny because the road that we should take, right? It could look like anything. It could look like the cushy job that doesn't bring you joy. You maybe work 70 hours a week, but it's a paycheck. And, you know, there's a version of that where that very well may be you following your joy. But there's also a version of that where you don't have time to pursue the things that you actually want to pursue and create the things you want to create. And maybe it's time for you to make space in your life to do those things. To do those things. Oftentimes it can feel like that is the path of least resistance. Okay, well, if I just keep doing the thing, if I just keep, staying in this job, if I just stay in this city, if I just stay in this comfortable, familiar thing that I know, we convince ourselves that it's the path of least resistance, but it's not. The path of least resistance is the path of our joy. And when I say the path of our joy, I don't mean that you're never going to encounter difficulty, that it's never going to be hard, that you're not going to have to work for it. But there is an ease and a flow to that path, because no matter what you encounter, you know that it's on the path to what you want. So the intention is very different. When you encounter difficulties and what's the word I'm looking for? Resistance on the path that you should take, right? The path of, you know, I should be in this job. I should take this. I should do these actions. I should stay in this place. There's so much resistance there. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be straight up with you. That manifests in your body. That looks like migraines every day that you can't control. That looks like upset stomachs. That looks like stress. That looks like tension in your relationships. That looks like you can't sleep at night. That that path is not the path of least resistance. It feels like a self betrayal. And I only know this because I've walked that path. There were many seasons of my life where I was doing things just because people thought I should, or just because people projected onto me the things they wanted me to be, just not actually what I wanted for me. And I stayed too long. I stayed too long in relationships too. I'm talking mostly in terms of like career and creativity, but like also relationships, right? Like impacts every area of your life. And when I shared this at this conference, there was a woman in the audience, and she was so straight up. And I this is what I love about speaking in groups of women like this. She was like, "Yeah, I see both of those paths. I see the path that I took because I thought I should, and I see the path of my joy that I'm taking now." And she was recounting that when she was a teacher she was I want to say a third grade teacher in public schools. She was always great with kids. Like growing up, she loved being around kids, so she was like, I guess I should become a teacher. And she did it, and she was in it for a couple years, and then 2020 happened, and so the whole landscape changed, and she wasn't happy, and she thought maybe it was just because COVID and all this stuff. And so she um stuck it out. And then even after COVID, when they're all back in the classroom, she was like, no, I just really don't enjoy this. And so she left halfway through the year. And she was like, people told me that I shouldn't do that, that it would be horrible for my resume, that, I wouldn't be able to get enough. All the things people tried to convince this woman of. And she was like, but I knew. She was like, another woman was like, my relationship with my husband was she was like, he was getting the dregs of me. She was like, he did great. He did the best he could, but like, I didn't really give him much to work with because I was so unhappy. And I took it out on the people I loved, the people close to me. So, all that to say, family, if you do nothing else today, just think about the paths. I want you to see them, picture them in your mind. What would it look like if you did things like everybody else thought you should? Right? Because then, in that path, one day you wake up and you're like, how did I get here? How did I get here? How did I get here? I had a friend tell me that once. So she went to school she's a licensed mental health counselor. And we had a conversation at one point, and she was like, Anastasia, I don't even know how I got here. I think I just was in school. I picked a major. I just finished it. And then, I was like, I guess I should do another one of these and get licensed. So I finished it. And then I just want to be a comedian. I said, what would you do if you do it all over again? What do you want to do? She said, I want to be a comedian. And she is hilarious. She is one of the funniest people I know. And we were having this heartfelt conversation, and I feel her because God, it's so like I get it. I could have stayed in my cushy corporate job at 24. And if you go back to episode, let me look this up real quick. If you go back to episode, I think it's 2. Nope, episode 1. If you go back to episode 1, I share all about my story. I share all about my experience in corporate America after grad school, and what led me to leave. And the synopsis is I was leading this big meeting with my coworkers and the government client we were working for and some of the other contractors that were on our contract. And I'm leading this big meeting, and like people are literally twice my age, 3 times my age in this room, in this conference table, big room. And I looked around and I thought, I don't want anybody's life in this room. And for some reason that was really important for me to that thought. It like took root, and 2 weeks later I was completely moved, living in Florida, had ended a relationship that needed to end. And totally started over. on a totally different path. So I share this because I hope you hear this in my voice and in my heart. Like, I want you to live the richest, most vibrant, most joyful, most blissful life. We only get one. We have right now. Our time is so precious. Our energy is so precious. I want you to have a human experience that is full of adventure and all of the most beautiful parts about being human. Rich relationships, incredible food, amazing sleep, nature walks, hikes. I want you to see new places, experience new things. What I don't want is for you to get so far down a path and say to yourself, how the freak did I get here? How did I get here? It feels so hard to choose a different way. This is all I know. This is so familiar. Get out in the water. Go to the deep end. Try something new. Something where you just believe in your heart it's going to work out, but you have no other evidence other than this is what you want and this is for you and you are worthy of it and you're going to make it happen. That is what I want. I want you to feel what it feels like to know that the entire universe is conspiring in your favor to bring into reality what you have in your heart, in your head, in your mind. I want you to know what it's like to co-create a life that you want. That's what I want for you. That's what I want for you. Y'all, I think that's a wrap. I have other things that I wrote down here, but I think I'm just going to save it because, yeah, in my heart, I just feel like, yeah, we'll continue this conversation um, in the future. But I just want to remind you, number one, this giveaway, enter it. Okay. If you're listening to this, you can enter because I'm not going to be talking about this literally anywhere else, just on the pod. So enter by the time the next episode releases. So a week. Give everybody a week to listen. So 5 copies I'm giving away. I might increase that number just because why not? So go to my website, fill out the contact form, or bonus points, like another entry if you leave a review or if you've left a review in the past. Just comment what your name was in the review, just so I know that it's you. And then you'll have a double entry, my friends. I love you. Also, free 30-minute brain voice clarity calls. Get on my calendar. There are times available that start next week, and there are limited spots. So once I hit that threshold of what I'm energetically capable of, uh, then they're gonna end. So get in on those, and I hope you book one because I want to meet you. I want to meet you and hear all about your dreams and the path of joy that you are taking. So, sending you big love. Okay.